Today, we are honored to have Chris join us on the Bear Experiment podcast. Now, Chris's story is one of incredible transformation and resilience. He's a former felon and heroin addict. He battled the depths of addiction, shooting up heroin and using drugs like cocaine. But Chris didn't let that struggle define him. Now, after being sober for 18 years, he has rebuilt his life with purpose, becoming a devoted husband, father, and advocate for autism. Now he's here to share his journey through addiction, his wake up call, and the path that took him to get clean and build a life filled with hope and determination. Chris's story is a testament to the power of recovery and the human spirit. So, welcome to the show, Chris. I really appreciate your time and just sharing all this valuable information with us. You have an incredible TikTok page. You're sharing it from a parent's perspective, which is what I love, right? Because every time that we look into autism, we're speaking with professionals, we're speaking with doctors, therapists, and like you say, some of them are great, right? Some of them are in
Yes.
it for the right reasons, but then, a lot of them are in it because of the money, and they're always gonna kind of sway toward that direction because that's what's gonna fill their pockets. And it's the reality of unfortunately the medical healthcare system, right?
That's just it. And a lot of times with these professionals that we've seen that like didn't help us and maybe even made things worse, I honestly think that they're just misinformed and they're not like trying to not like hurt or anything. They're just going with their way. The problem is like their way isn't fit for everybody because it's such a broad spectrum. And even if it isn't, they'll just keep you there.
Yeah, yeah,
You even if it's not really helping. It's
right.
like when I was going to a chiropractor and I needed to
Yeah,
see something else, but they'll keep you there because you're
because
gonna
they're
pay the
they're getting
bill.
the insurance is funneling that
Yep.
paycheck for them. That's the bottom line. So I do want to get into your advocacy for autism. Just for context, you do have an 11-year-old daughter named Marissa who is nonverbal and autistic.
Yes.
And you're a strong advocate just for awareness and, your personal experience with your wife, and you have a younger son. So I definitely want to dive into that. But your personal story is really amazing as well. So you were addicted to heroin and you were shooting up. Like, that's hardcore, dude.
Yeah.
That's no
Yeah.
joke. So how the hell did you get started in that?
So I was like the typical after school special. I mean, I had a right off the rip, I my mom struggled with alcoholism my whole life
Hmm.
and she really wasn't around from the time I turned probably like 7. She started drinking again. She struggled, got sober, had me, was the best mom you could ever ask for, and then picked back up and just I turned into a different person. So I had seen the depths of what like alcohol and drug abuse could do because then my brother started with the heroin and then I kind of just followed directly in his footsteps despite all the warnings. And the
He's
way
your
I
your
got
old
into
he's
it,
your older brother?
yes, older. He's 6, 7 years older. So the way I got into it was I was kind of doing my own thing with weed and cocaine and selling and dabbling and using. Things got really bad though. He was full fledged junkie mode and he ended up getting locked up. And when he got locked up, he had a bunch of friends that like I knew my whole life. We all grew up together, your
Right.
older brother's friends. And so I was in high school, I had a car, I kind of had my stuff together. I wrestled and played football and stuff. I was kind of a drug addict but jock. I was weird, but I the drug part of me was always there and what happened was they just started calling me and asking for rides. Like, hey, take me down to Cleveland, East Cleveland. We're gonna go get some stuff, and I'll pay you money. Or I drive them to like Walmart or the mall, and they'd steal
Yeah.
jeans or clothes for me or whatever. And I was just taking them to go get heroin. And they would also, the big thing was a lot of them were overage, so they would buy us alcohol. So that was
Mm,
huge when you're in high school. Like, yeah, I'll take you to Cleveland. You got to
for
stop by
sure.
here at the liquor store and fill up this party for me. But so one thing led to another, and I was doing cocaine more heavily, and they were asking for rides, and it became like an everyday occurrence. And then the one time I tried it, and I'm like, man, this was a good way to come down off of the cocaine, and I like the way it makes me feel. And then the next day they asked for a ride, and I'm like, all right, might as well get another one. I was just snorting at this time, and before you know it, that went about a week. And then the one morning I woke up and I'm like, man, I don't feel good. And then they called me for a ride, and I went and got dope with them, and I did a bag, and I'm like, I feel better now. Oh man, I'm in trouble.
Yep.
Because I knew what my brother had become, because I watched my brother just downfall. And I was still a senior in high school when this was happening. So my last year in high school, I ended up passing by the skin of my teeth. I barely showed up. It was, I was a mess. But the teachers, I think, had known me my whole life and knew that I was like a good kid. Like I was a football player, wrestler, and then I kind of took this downfall. So when I started falling off or whatever, and they knew I had problems with my mom, and they kind of gave me the benefit of the doubt, somehow I passed. Long story short, I made it about a month after graduation, and my father walked in on me shooting up and called the cops. And he didn't know what to do, and I don't blame him or any. I put him in a weird position, but I ended up going to jail. I did a little 45 days or something. They call it a jail treatment program. It's like
So
you go to
it's
jail.
kind of like a rehab kind of thing that they offer.
Yeah, but you're
Yeah.
in jail. Like you're in jail for 2 weeks, and then you stay in jail, but there's a certain pod
Hmm.
that's called the jail treatment program. And exactly, it's like a rehab where they have counselors all day. You're not allowed to play cards, you're not allowed to gamble like normal jail. There's classes all day, but it's like a lesser sentence than when you complete it. So I did that, but I didn't really take it serious. And that was pretty much my story for the next like 4 or 5 years was I would get locked up. I would have every intention of never being that person again. I would get out, pick up one time, and then it was off and running. And I couldn't stop. And it was just a vicious cycle for me. And the last time, I mean, I had I OD'd, and this was a turning point, and it sucks because I ended up going back. I remember overdosing. This is how bad I was at one point, and they revived me at the hospital, and I was just like, I'm like, man, I had just relapsed, and I'm like, I'm just gonna go through this again. And I remember these nurses, because I was like 18 at the time with a baby face. I didn't have any facial hair. And I remember these nurses were like crying, like just, oh my God, your lips were blue. I thought we lost you. And it was at like that point, those damn nurses had more appreciation for my life than I did, and then it was kind of like a clearing point, but I couldn't stop. I literally left the hospital and went and did the same exact dope that just killed me the night before.
So
And
walk
somehow, some
us.
way, what's that?
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, somehow, some way, I ended up getting arrested again. Thank God. And well, I was stealing out of a store, I should say. Somehow, some way, they caught me shoplifting, and I wasn't no like hardcore criminal or whatever. That was all my stuff. They'd always like bust me stealing out of Targets and WalMarts and just doing criminal stuff. But it was just at that point, I'm like, man, people are gonna end up going to my funeral, and that's like the only option. Everybody I know is either dying or going to prison. So what the hell am I gonna do here? And at that point, my brother, who had also strung out, we were actually running together at the time. He got arrested like 11 days after me, and he didn't have any charges. It was just one little crime. I had a more of a rap sheet. He had cleared his, so he found a like a homeless shelter rehab in East Cleveland, and that's where he was living. So he was like writing me from there, letting me know I was going through the courts, and like I was in a court order treatment center, yada yada yada. I got out. My family didn't want anything to do with me. I had nowhere to go. So I'm like, what's up? I mean, can I get a bed over there? And he's like, yeah, come on down. So they let me go. I moved in with him, and it was like it's a place called the Ed Keating Center in Cleveland. It has saved so many damn lives. It's the greatest thing ever. Like they just take homeless people, homeless crackheads, junkies, alcoholics, bottom of the barrel, take you in. The whole concept is you stay there for free, put your groups, go through groups and go through their program or whatever, and then you also then commit to go to their halfway house and pay rent. So that way that keeps the doors open for the next guys that
The
come.
next round that's coming
It's
in.
just a revolving door. So I actually, by the time with all the jail time and rehab time I was clean like almost a year. So they just let me go straight halfway. So I went there. I had a job from, yeah, and then I just started paying rent. And then I was going to AA meetings, working the 12 steps. And by the grace of God, I was able to stay sober from that time, September 11th, 2006. So
How long were you how long were you in addiction?
it's about 5 years.
Okay.
And I was terrible at it, man. I was locked up for a lot of them too, like in and out of jail and just, yeah. It
Right.
was, I did not do good. As soon as I'm the one, I don't stop. Like it was, I never even went to a detox center. Like I've never been to detox. I get arrested. That's the only way I stop. So,
So
or I die.
you OD. I mean, that's pretty rock bottom for, in
Yeah.
my eyes, but you said that you kept using afterwards. So what was that defining moment for you where you were just like, if I don't stop, I'm gonna die?
I remember there was one time I'm laying in my jail cell, and like by this time, nobody wrote me, nobody put money on my books, none of that. And I had a bunkie, and he told me he was in there for a dope case, and whatever. I'm just like, all right, whatever. We were cool, but his family was bringing him commissary, like putting money on his books. He was getting letters every day, and he would like help feed me. He would give me food at night and stuff. Super cool. Long story short, the newspaper comes into the pod, and he was wanted for like sexually assaulting his cousin.
Oh wow.
And I'm like, what? Instantly, he found out about that, hit the thing, and got kited off the pod. Whatever. They took him out because he knew he was going to have trouble the next morning or whatnot.
Right.
So he left, and like I was cleaning up the cell. Like I wasn't even in the cell when he did this. I came, and then everybody told me I was cleaning up the pod because I was on duty that night. But I remember coming in there and I'm like, what the hell happened? He's like, yeah, man, he did some shit to his cousin or whatever. I'm like, whoa. And then I'm laying in my cell and I'm like thinking, damn, that dude's family was even supporting him. And like all I'm doing is some drugs and nobody even wants anything to do with me. And the one time I said I was in there with like a $200 bond and nobody would even come and get me. And it was just like at that point, I remember thinking, I'm like, I'm going to die and my funeral isn't going to be sad. It's going to be like a social gathering where people like, yeah, this is what we expected out of Chris.
Right.
I haven't
Right.
seen you since high school. How you doing? And it'd be like more of a social gathering where people catch up with each other and be like, yeah, we figured we'd be here. And all that together. And then with my brother, and honestly, I'm not like a huge religious guy, but I started to pray when I got to that treatment center, and I was like against God my whole life. And I'm like, you know what? All these people are blabbing about God. Why don't I give this God thing a try? So I started praying. I didn't even know what the hell I was praying to at first.
Hmm.
And it all ended up working out. And literally, I just did the whole one day at a time thing. And I just did whatever the hell they told me to do at that house. I went to my meetings. I talked to my sponsor. I worked the 12 steps, and one thing led to another. And I was able to maintain sobriety. So,
Did you have a lot of cravings or triggers during this process of recovery?
not really. Early on, absolutely. And I would have like recalls and stuff like that where I would have moments, but nothing to where it was like, I don't know, nothing some prayer and meditation couldn't help me with.
Yeah,
And then I
definitely.
got really big into like working out and stuff. And I think that helped. And just doing the whole mind and body overhaul. So,
So would you say that that's the main thing that kind of has allowed you to maintain your sobriety for 18 years?
yes.
Yeah.
And I'm not technically sober. I use weed now. It's probably been about 4 years now. I'm a cement finisher by trade, and I have 3 herniated discs, and it's bad sometimes. And it was getting really bad, and my life was kind of miserable. Like I'd come home from work and I could barely walk, and I just in pain all the time. But you can't like call off because you need to work. And so I was going to chiropractors and doing stuff like this, but it wasn't really helping. And then pain pills were like not an option for guys like me, but they honestly started to seem like a good idea because especially like on the Union cruise, those dudes all pop them every morning.
Right.
They're around like Pez dispensers. And I'm like, maybe I can't do that. And a couple people I had gotten sober with had some health problems and stuff, and they were eating edibles
Uh-huh.
And I had smoked weed every day of my life from the time I was 12 to 18. Like even when I wrestled and played football, I smoked weed no matter what. And so I was like, man, maybe that might be a thing for me. So it worked. And so that's what I do now. I haven't smoked weed in almost a week now, just because I'm trying to reset, maybe give clear sobriety another try. But so I'm not technically sober, but I am off of heroin for 18 years now, and
Hey,
crack or cocaine. I don't drink either,
yeah.
because when I drink, I do stupid things, and
You just
I
activate the whole funnel, right? Like when you
yes.
drink. Yeah,
And my whole
that's
family does not have a good history with alcohol, so we don't
right.
even need to go down that path.
Right, 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 totally.
Yes.
So how would you explain then that, all of these challenges so early on, high school, heroin addiction, going to jail so often, rehab, how has this impacted your life right now? And now we'll jump into your beautiful daughter Marissa, which is what we
Yes.
really wanted to kind of focus on and really elaborate on your message and your advocacy. She is nonverbal, autistic, and recently you started homeschooling her as of three
Yes.
years ago, and you have
Yes.
seen how she has completely like started to fly, basically, right? Like
Yes.
you've seen
Yes.
how the school system, the education system, and the therapies and the ABA and all that fun stuff that they send autistic children to, how a lot of it is all crap.
Not really for everybody.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I look back at my recovery aspect, and I swear to God, I'm grateful for heroin, because I was supposed to go to the Marines. Two of my best friends went, and I was signed up with them. And then I caught that case, and they even knocked my first case down to a misdemeanor so I could re-enlist and go, like, because I was originally supposed to be charged with a felony. And then I relapsed and didn't. I ended up violating probation, and then I ended up catching another case, and I got a felony, so that was off the table. But I thought I would make a great soldier, because I was like a wrestler and I was big in the fitness thing, and I wanted to do it. That was like, I thought that was my calling. But now I look back on it and I'm like, that I don't think I would have been able to handle it, because I would have just left and then left my disease at home almost. And then whatever I would have done in the service, I probably would have came back and
Right.
became a train wreck then, and had a lot more to lose. So I just look at that like I was almost grateful for heroin that it happened so early, because it knocked me to where I needed to go and showed me where I needed to be. So, and now I have this whole new appreciation for life, I think, because I see how bad it can be. And there's not a day I'm not grateful for where I'm at now,
Yeah.
and I always remember where I was at. So
Right, right, right. And just be in the present moment and really just be grateful for everything you have today. I mean, that's really the way to live day by
in
day, and be grateful in the moment, right?
100%. Plus, it introduced me to my relationship with God, helped me become better
But
meditation, and I met my wife through the program,
so
which
tell me
is
about
honestly
that. So tell me
That's
about
honestly
that.
a big no-no, because I did something what they call 13th stepping. I had like a year of sobriety, and she only had like 6 months, and we started dating, and that's very frowned upon, because you're supposed to work on yourself and you're not supposed to hook up with new girls. But she was really hot and I couldn't resist.
I saw her
But no,
picture. She is
and
very pretty.
yeah, she was very pretty. She is very pretty. Um, but she definitely had her shit together too. Like, even though she was 6 months sober, I'm not gonna try to tell her story.
Yeah.
She just had a boyfriend, that her ex-boyfriend or whatever, they were using together, and it was almost like one of those things where she's a very good person that was in with a bad person.
She fell
And
into
then
the,
once
yeah.
she
The wrong company sometimes will steer you in the wrong direction. I think there's a
Yeah,
lot of truth to that saying. Tell me who you're hanging out with, and I'm going to tell you who you are. There's a lot of
exactly.
validity to that. Uh,
But
s- so you met
in
her in
turn,
rehab.
and then it's funny because I was the exact opposite. I always So anytime I dated somebody, I dated the completely straight edge girl and then I'd make her life miserable. Like, what is this guy into? So it
Right.
was just kind of funny. And I met her. It was two completely different things, but we just gelled from day one. And I mean, it's just awesome. We were meant to have that girl and do what we're doing right now. And I'm fully convinced of that. So
So your daughter's 18 she's 11 years old right now.
Yes.
And when what did you notice in her as a baby, right? Like how early on were the signs and symptoms that you started seeing in her where you were like, okay, there's something off, other than that she was nonverbal? There had to be something else that you were seeing patterns.
Exactly. So I had a couple nephews and I've been around kids a little bit, and she was just doing random stuff. Like she met all her physical milestones. She was even saying some words. Um, she would just do weird things like line up all her toys and she
Yeah.
wouldn't talk to like she would talk. She wouldn't play with any other kids, no pretend play, no eye contact, just little stuff that the traits were there. And it's like something's a little off with her. We didn't know. And then I kind of just maybe it was autism. And I honestly wasn't as scared about that. It was, I'm like, this is my kid. I'm going to love her no matter what. And we're going to do whatever the hell we got to do. It
Absolutely.
was just more along the lines of, man, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And this isn't going to be what I thought it was going to be. So we kind of got a revamped situation. And I was scared, but I took it pretty good at first. And then once it got even more crazy, it got dark. So
So then walk us through that. So then at what stage from the point that she's born that you start noticing all of these signs, do you take her then for evaluation or to the doctor just in general to see what's going on with her? Because as a parent, you know something's off.
yes. So we were doing the schedule. We had a normal pediatrician and we're doing all that. And then once we brought up what was happening, you fill out these like questionnaires and then you go see, they'll send you to a specialist. And that's what we did. And this diagnosis wasn't surprising, like to say the least, especially as we were going on through this process. It was almost like it was getting worse. So when that happened, but then the toddler years were just so confusing and dark because like there was a point in time where like she just would climb everything and you couldn't leave the room because she was dangerous. She was peeling all the carpet off, chipping paint off the wall. She couldn't even have a mattress in her room because she would like stand it up and climb on it and like reach for the ceiling fan and stuff.
Wow.
And it was bad. And you're like, and I don't know what the hell I'm doing as it is. I'm a first time parent, and then you got this kid I love more than anything in the world, and I don't really know how to help her, and it just seems like she's going through it. And then so we went all in. We were once school happened and stuff like that, but it was dark for me in the fact of like she wasn't sleeping, and then therefore we're not sleeping. And then you worry about the financial burden because everything's expensive and you're on waiting lists for everything.
Sure.
And so that's eating up at you. And you can't really like take, like, my wife had to then like stay home because we didn't feel safe taking her to like daycares and stuff because she doesn't talk and we don't know how they're treating her. And so by the time you pay for daycare, because I had like a union job, so I didn't get any credits or anything. So by the time you pay for daycare, it's like, well, you're pretty much my wife's working 40 hours to bring home like 150 bucks.
Yeah, it doesn't
So
make
why not?
sense. It doesn't make
So just
sense. Right.
stay at home with
Stay home.
the kid, and we'll
Absolutely.
figure it out from there.
Yeah.
So, but it was dark in the fact of like, what the hell is our life gonna be? Like, is this it? Like, I don't know. And I'm totally fine with my daughter living with us forever. It's kind of like, that's awesome. But like, I want to have her be okay and just like be happy. And she wasn't at the time, and we weren't. And it was just very confusing. And you just lay in bed at night. And then you worry. The biggest thing is, what the hell is going to happen to her when we die?
Right.
Because hopefully she outlives us. And I don't trust anybody. I don't really
So
have close family. And
so what
so,
okay, so that's my next question. So what about your family, your side or her side? Was there help? Did you go to them at all? Were, were they
um,
were they supportive? Were they understanding? Were they
they're supportive, but not really. We never had the option to just drop a kid off. Like
Gotcha.
there's nobody that can handle her. And like our moms weren't really in the picture. My mom had passed a couple years ago, but her mom, like, not really in the picture. She is, but not really capable. And same with our dads are great and active, but it's just a lot to ask them. Plus they were working. So the papas or whatnot. So it's just like here, this is our
No,
kid. Like,
it's what you're saying. It is. It's a lot to ask of anybody other than a parent, right? To
yes.
than your own child to have to deal with that, especially if you as a parent don't even know how to deal with it. Imagine them, right? And they're older, and yeah, I can certainly see how that's concerning. So you take her to the doctor. They give you the diagnosis that she's autistic. What do they say to you at that point? Like she's on the spectrum, she's severe. Like what are they saying to you?
Yeah, like I forget what level they even diagnosed her as. And honestly, I have a video about that. When you get into that, I don't even they don't even know how to test them. So the level thing, you can take it with I could take it with a grain of salt because if you don't know how to test them, then the results you're getting from those tests aren't accurate. So therefore, the course of action you're going to send the kid on isn't accurate either. So they just basically we did the in-home, like people would come to our house and work with her, like doing the ABA thing. And then it was time to go to school, and then she would go to school, and then we do like after care kind of a few times a week, and people were coming to the house, and it was just nonstop therapies.
Did you find
And
it to be effective at all, or was it just a complete waste of time?
I wouldn't say a complete waste of time because there were some progress, but then you don't know like where the progress was coming from. Was it coming from her getting older or from her working with them? And honestly, in the long run, I wish we found out about what we're doing now, the spelling and the brain body
Yeah,
disconnect and what we learned.
I love that. I love that information that you're putting out
Yes.
there. Yeah.
So,
It makes a lot of sense, by the way. It totally
yes,
makes sense.
because like the whole sitting your autistic non-speaking child at
Yeah.
a table for 40 hours a week and making them point to stuff and put up blocks and go grab this is just pointless. And you're
Listen,
better off taking them on
children,
swings and slides and all that.
regular children, right? To say that,
Yes.
right? Regular children that don't have that diagnosis, adults like me that do not have that diagnosis. I have a hard time sitting in front of a
Mhm.
computer for 8 hours a day. It's very, very difficult. And especially then if you are now in the level of frustration that your brain is telling you one thing and your body's not able to react, think
Mhm.
about it. You're going to freak out too. You're going to have a temper tantrum. I know that I would, right?
Absolutely. And that's the other thing where it's like, I don't know how much more worse we made it by sending in those therapies because she's kind of frustrated at those because they're misunderstanding her. She's not giving the results that we're not getting the results. So like nobody's really that happy. And then like she's watching us struggle going through like fighting the school board and then like trying to qualify for certain things. And then I ended up losing my insurance because we weren't married and we weren't married specifically so we can get certain insurance. And then they
Sure.
found out I had insurance. It was just a cluster. And then they made her take my union insurance. And then my union insurance wouldn't cover the autism diagnosis. So I ended up quitting the union, it ended up being a blessing in disguise. But then I'm like leaving this job where
You're freaking
I'm
out.
a multiple felon. I got a job with a full pension, benefits,
Or
making 30
what
some
am I going to
dollars an
do
hour.
now? Yeah, I
Yeah,
hear
like
you.
what the hell? I worked so hard to get here. I'm like rising up in this company too. Like I have all the hours I could ever want. And then like all of a sudden it's like, oh, I gotta try something else. So I ended up doing my own thing and it's worked out. But it's just a lot to take and a lot of parents deal with the same thing. So I know what they're going through. But it was just for somebody who didn't know what the hell was going on, it was a lot. And then you throw in the whole thing of I'm an ex-junkie. I have these things I need to
Yeah.
take care of for my own mental stability,
No, you
PTSD
can
or
write a
whatever
couple
the
of
hell.
books here.
Yeah.
Let me help you with your future. Write a couple of books,
Yeah.
best-selling author, you're going to be sitting with some
Yeah.
bank in the future.
Yes. Yeah.
Let's get a little bit into like the ABA therapy that they
Okay.
offer. That's like one of the first steps when a
Yes.
child is diagnosed by a physician. And now they do the at home, right? Which is usually the way that it works, right? They send them to
Yes.
your home. What did they do with that ABA therapy? Because I've heard a lot of negative feedback
Okay.
from that type of therapy.
So I never try to bash ABA because I know people who claim it's worked for their kid,
Hmm.
but I'm pretty sure it's more of from a verbal or someone who has who speaks because I don't know of a lot of non-speakers who have had a ton of success, and I don't want to like bash anybody, but I'll tell you this: if you show me the best non-speaking 11-year-old ABA therapy uh, curriculum, and then I show you what I'm doing with my daughter, I'm pretty sure 99% of parents are going to choose what the hell I got going on.
No, that's
So,
impressive. It really is what your daughter's
so,
doing.
so the whole ABA thing was that's like you said, that's what you think is the best, so that's what you do,
Well, you
and then they
guide
start.
yourself by a professional, right? Like, who are
Yes,
the people that are somewhat most respected in the world, right? Doctors. Okay, my kid's sick. What do? I don't know what to do. I'm not
and then they sent
educated.
me
I'm not
there, so that's
right.
where I'm going.
I'm going to do whatever my doctor tells me, and it's not necessarily the proper route to take. Sometimes we need people like you and I to come out there and say, this is what's working for my child. This is how much better she is. Talk about all of her achievements and milestones so that other parents that are struggling that have no idea that this type of support, right, or education is available for nonverbal autistic children,
Yes.
like I'm telling you, it makes sense. It makes complete sense. Everything that you're talking about with, if your brain is thinking it, but you can't. It happens to you sometimes. If you drink too much, if you're doing
Mhm.
drugs, your
Yep,
brain is thinking one thing and you can't. Your body's not allowing you to do
exactly.
the rest.
Yep,
So
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. So the whole ABA thing, we were doing ABA and public education. So we were dropping her off at school right down the street, and then we'd pick her up, and they'd either come or we take her somewhere, and we do ABA after school, and then on like weekends or whatever, she'd get a certain amount. She qualified for a certain amount of hours. We had people coming to our house, so on and so forth, and we were taking her to school like 4 to 6 hours a day. And we did not like the public education at all. We had some beef with them, and I ended up flipping out on a drop off line, and I'm like, we're not sending her back here. So, and then we're like, well, we'll just go with the ABA, I guess, then, right? Because that's all we kind of can do. And let's dive
Right.
into this because that's what they say is the best for it. So we like fought for these grants and got some, but then we had to pay. I mean, it was like an $80,000 ABA school, the best in the area, and all this.
Oh wow.
And so we did a T-shirt drive, all this. We raised some good money, and some family helped us out. But I was out like 15 G's of my own money to put her through this school, and that's a lot for a construction worker. Um, but I'm whatever. We're like, dude, we
Don't
got it.
that's a
She's
lot.
going.
That's a
This is
lot for a
awesome.
lot of people, not just
Yeah,
for that. So don't say
yeah.
that.
So we're like, we got her. This is
Yeah.
it. You know what I mean? Because we had like funds, and then everything came together. We paid the tuition, and we got her for a year. We're going there. Then the COVID shit happened, and it was just like they're like trying to work with us remote, and I'm getting pissed. I'm like, I paid 80 grand for this. You're putting this kid in front of a computer. She's flipping out, not even like paying attention to anything.
I was
It
gonna
was a
say, so
train wreck.
right at that point, like her behavior, right? Because you know your child at this
Yeah.
point. You have to notice that when you're taking her to school, she's kind of having she's
So
behaving a
she
certain way
would
where
be
it's
like
negative.
cool, but not. And then it's like, well, is this like just her? And then because we didn't really have any like all happy times, so we didn't really have anything to judge it off of. It was almost like she was putting up with certain things and just going with the flow.
Mhm.
And I don't know if she liked school because there were other kids there a little bit, and they were giving her candy there and stuff. I don't know what was going on, but she definitely was not thrilled to go to school, but she was just like, whatever, this
Gotcha.
is, and you don't really know how to read because it's so different. And all of their reactions, especially early on in the toddler years, don't seem to make any sense at all. It's
Hmm.
just complete, like, what the hell is going on? This is so confusing. But I read that ABA is the best, and that's what they tell me, and that's what the doctor recommends. So we'll just keep doing this, whatever. And then by the grace of God, some lady came into a pizza shop that my wife's first sponsor and one of her close friends owns. She's a friend of the family. Long story short, me and my wife got married on our 10-year anniversary from our first date. And she was one
Nice.
of the 28 people that we invited because we did a small wedding and then we did a bigger like party thing. But so she's like totally involved with my daughter, loves Marissa, super sweet lady. She owns a pizza shop. The one customer comes in, and the customer has an autistic kid, and the customer was talking about the spelling. Grace calls my wife instantly, like, you got to look at this. And then she recommends a book called Ito and Autism Land. And then my wife listens to it on tape and is like, dude, we're doing this wrong. Like, what are you talking about? She's like, Marissa's in there. Like, it's all in there because you don't know at this point because she's not responding to anything you say. I said, Marissa, come here. Marissa, what's up? Marissa, let's go over here. No, nothing. Every once in a while, you get a reaction, but nobody mentioned anything about a brain body disconnect. They didn't talk about apraxia. They didn't say any of this,
Hmm.
so we had no idea. We're reading the body like, oh, she's like, my whole philosophy was she would like go in her own little world and then like snap out of it or whatever, because that's how I'm reading it. But come to find out, it's like she's in there the whole time, but can't get her body to move. And then we read this Ito and Autism Land, we're listening to it. And then there was another book called Underestimated that furthered this. And then this lady was spelling with her kid. And then my wife went and watched her son spell. And he was like 13 or 14 at the time. And she came home. She said, I cried the whole time. This is the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. With that book and this, we got to figure this out. We got to try something new. So they were going to Florida. And at this point, there was no spelling practitioners anywhere. So we're like, well, we got to go to Florida. That's what we got to do. So luckily, I get laid off in the winter. At this point, it was like October or whatever. So she still had time to go in her school. So there was like a couple months where it was kind of like we have to send her to school because we paid for it, but the county paid for whatever. Like there
Like
was
you
other
have to
hands
do it. Yeah.
involved. So
Right.
we wanted to fulfill our obligation. And then so we're sending her to school and like, Marissa, just go through the motions. We know it's bullshit. We got this. We're going to do the spelling
Right.
thing. We're going down there. We know you're in there. They're underestimating you, because we read that you understand all this and we believe that now. And so we started to talk to her in an age appropriate manner and we started to presume a competence more because we understood that her body was the problem and not her mind. And her attitude was different. It was easier for her. It was almost like a sense of relief. Like, dude, they got it. You know what I mean? She was almost like happy.
They're
So
understanding me. They're
yeah,
understanding. Yeah.
they know what's going on now. And so we went and did the ABA thing. Winter came. We scheduled the appointments to Florida. So we drove to Florida, and the first spelling session, it was insane because we go in this room. We don't know what the hell we're doing. We're
Right.
like, is this real? We
Right.
read a couple books. We're basing it off of one person who then sent us here. Like, are they getting money for this? Like we don't
Right.
know. But at this point, we had lost all options, and the couple thousand that this trip had cost us seemed better than paying 80,000 more for whatever the hell we were doing back there.
Mm-hmm.
So we're like, we got to give this a shot. And we go there and she starts reading like a sixth grade lesson. Now, mind you, back home, they got my daughter pointing to which one's the zebra. You got to tell me
Mm-hmm.
3 times which one's the color green. And they even sent home a progress report where they told me, this is what really messed me up, man. They told me she couldn't identify me. So I'm like, man, that's bullshit. Like, she's got to
Like
know who I am.
yeah,
Like, because we would have to send in like pictures of us, and then they would basing that on like point to your dad, and she wouldn't point to her dad. But the problem is she has apraxia and can't control her body. But I'm looking at it, I don't know what any of that means. So they send home a thing like, man, she don't even know who I am. And then she's like, she never would get excited when I come home from work, and it was like hard to take all that. Like, man, does she not even know what the hell is going on? Is she just that far gone that she doesn't even know what the color green is, or her dad? We've been working on this for months. So we go to Florida. They start reading like a sixth grade lesson. It was about like, I don't even know. Everything was a trance. It was about astronomy or something, whatever. So they start reading this lesson. We're in this little room, and the whole time they're reading, like, Marissa's screaming. She's not even like paying attention, it seems like. She's just running around the room. She's organizing the pencils, messing around with the papers, making noise that are louder than the lady who's even reading. I'm like, is this fine? She's like, don't worry about it. She just keeps reading. I'm like, all right. She's like, come on, Marissa, come spell. So like after it took a couple seconds, we redirected her and she spelled. So she started with these things and she started asking questions. And at this point, Marissa, you use a pencil and there's only like 6 letters on the board. there's a process to this. You start with the
Right.
smaller letter or bigger letters because the problem is they have vision problems too,
Oh,
which nobody
okay.
ever said
Oh,
about.
I didn't
So
know
they
that.
can't even focus.
I've never heard
So then,
that.
like pointing to stuff, that was why the AAC device was a freaking train wreck for us too, because the buttons were so small and she couldn't focus. We didn't know any of this. So I can get into that and a whole other thing. So we're at the spelling thing. They ask her a question, and I'm like, she ain't gonna know what the hell this is. And like, she started to spell, and she would like with her pencil point to the one letter, and I'm like, what? And then they bring the next board, and she'd point to that letter, and I'm like, she's spelling a word here. And then they bring the next word letter, and she might mispoke a little bit, but she was like in the area, and then she poke it again. I'm like, what? What? She wasn't even paying attention. You know what I mean? And you're asking her this, and we're talking about the color green at home. You know, like what is going on here? And then the thing that blew my mind is at the end of the lesson, they asked her who the first man on the moon was. And whatever, if that even happened, but regardless of
That's
that,
a whole nother
yeah,
conversation.
that's a whole other topic. But I'll tell you what, my daughter knew it was Neil Armstrong because sure as shit, she went right to the
Spelled it.
end, right to the E. But I'm like, hey, that wasn't even on the freaking question that wasn't even on the lesson. She's like, no, that's an open question. I'm like, what the hell does that mean? That's like, no, that's what of previous knowledge. I'm like, how the hell does she know Neil Armstrong was the first man on the moon? It's not like we talk about Neil Armstrong at home. It's like, no. And she basically told me, no, they know everything. I'm like, what the hell you mean? And
Do
I'm like,
you
how the hell does she even know how to spell like Neil, Neil, instead of Neal or whatever? And they're like,
do
they know how to spell everything. And
do you feel with your experience and just being around it so much that children with autism, especially where it's more severe, where they're nonverbal like your daughter is, that they're just smarter than the rest of us?
that's what I am finding out. And now there's have you heard of the
Yes,
telepathy
the
tapes?
telepathy tapes. I have not
They're
seen it, but
blowing.
I'm
I haven't listened to them yet. My daughter and wife listened to them in like a day. They loved them. I've
is
been
it
on
what
fan.
it's a podcast, right? That's out.
Yeah.
What is it? Yeah. I was
So
reading
it is
about that.
basically it's spreading awareness for spelling, which is awesome.
Hmm.
Now there's like some backlash because people think telepathy's bull crap, blah blah blah. But I'll tell you what, I don't know about the telepathy yet with her, but I do know that her brain has not stopped amazing me. So I don't know what the hell these kids are capable of. But I guess in the podcast they have like a 95% success rate. So
Right.
basically they'll like ask these kids questions from different rooms or even from different states and they know each other's answers or whatever. I haven't listened to it yet, but I know it's mind blowing. Joe Rogan's even talking about it and like it's going everywhere. And that's like every message and thing I'm getting is about the telepathy tapes.
Well, I mean, they say that we use what, like 10% of our brain,
Yes.
maybe they're, working
Well,
on a much higher percentage that we
and it's
don't
almost
understand how to
like,
utilize.
you know how deaf people see better or
Right,
smell
right,
better
because they
or
have no
whatever? It's
choice
like,
but to use those other senses. That's a
yes, and
great
they're
point,
heightened.
Chris. Yeah,
Yes.
that is a great
So
point.
and I am an uneducated felon. I'm a construction working dad. I know none of this.
You might be
But
more educated than a lot of these professionals out there. That's all I can
but
tell.
but I am pretty good at reading people. Once again, I'm grateful for my junkieism from an early age because when you're a drug addict and you're a con man, you start to see everybody else as a con man. So I'm almost grateful that I went through that path because it helped me discover this almost earlier and see it for what it is. So the whole spelling thing though was then like instantly like, why the hell isn't this a thing? Like, why did I have to find out about this through some random lady walking through a pizza shop?
Well, you know
Why
what?
isn't this like public knowledge? They're praising at the top of the rooftops because they
And,
get funding for all the other stuff, and that's
and
what I'm learning.
And you know what? Let's not talk about the negative so much, right?
Yes.
The funding
So
and
you're right.
the healthcare.
Yes.
Let's keep this positive, right? So
Well,
that
anybody
people
who
stay
listens to
positive.
it, though, I want them to know that's why spelling isn't popular,
No,
but it will be, and this is going to help because
but what
now
I'm
they're not going to have a choice but to
right.
recognize it.
But what I wanted to say with that is that I think that a lot of it is just like awareness with your spiritual side. And
Yes.
listen, this is a higher power that just guided you to meet that lady at the
Yep.
pizza shop at that particular moment, where she's the one
Mhm.
that guided you to do the spelling with your daughter. I do believe
Yes.
that there's a greater power that's playing for all of us with your addiction in the beginning, setting you up for this life lesson that you're doing now, where you're, raising your daughter, and you're doing a great job at doing that as well. So,
Thank you.
uh, so
Well,
go
no,
ahead.
and in turn, just to piggyback off of that, like my whole life, I thought I'd be the guy that helped young junkies. And
Yeah,
I was cool with that because like at a point I was on like the AA circuit. I was leading meetings everywhere. I ran a big book discussion, a 12 and 12 at the old treatment center I went to every Thursday night, every Saturday night. I would go back and help new guys. I sponsored a bunch of guys. I was going to a ton of meetings. That was my life, was like, in order for me to not pick up heroin again, I'm gonna try to make sure other people don't.
heck
That's like
yeah.
the whole point. And like that was my calling, I thought. And now, no, this is my calling. My calling is to help parents. There's enough ex junkies to help junkies and
I was gonna
alcoholics.
say there's plenty
Yes.
of those out there that they can serve their purpose, just
And
helping,
I support
helping
them
others
too.
with addiction. But there's not enough education on autism, and
Yes.
there's a lot of skepticism with, like we're talking about the spelling now. So
Mhm.
you're taking her, then you're figuring out about the spelling, how your daughter is in there, how she's always been in there, and it's opening your eyes, and you decide to homeschool her. So your wife is the one that's homeschooling her
Yes.
now.
Yes.
Okay.
So we got it made now. So long story short, we then stuck with the Florida thing and pretty much sunk every dollar we possibly had into Florida. Going back, we probably
Mm-hmm.
been back and forth to Florida, working with her 20 times, and then so we did that, and then my wife was doing like parent cohort training where she would like go down there and work with them to where they teach you how to spell with your kid at home, because there's not practitioners everywhere, but we got them now. So through that, we ended up, there were two people going through the training, and now they have a place 15 minutes from our house. My daughter goes there 4 times a week, and my wife works there now as an
Oh, that's
adaptive personal
awesome.
trainer.
That's
Like it's
great.
just, we got it's like, I couldn't ask for a better life. My wife is personally training the clients. Everybody's thriving. This place is taking off. They're going to be on a waiting list soon. Everybody, it's just everything you could like want is happening now. We got this great community, all these spelling kids. Like we booked a pool party for my daughter in what is it? And we got it in like 2 weeks. We rented out a pool, an indoor pool. I live in Cleveland, obviously, and she's gonna have her birthday party there, and all our spelling friends are coming. We had one last year with bowling, so it's like these kids get together and they're having like the typical kid lifestyle. And it's just like I cry while I'm there, man. All the parents are. We're like, this is awesome. Like we didn't even think this was possible.
That is so cool. I love it. I'd love to hear that.
Yes.
And you can tell by the excitement and the joy in your voice and the
Yeah.
look on your
I
face,
hope I don't
that
cry because I start to, but no, we're good. I'll get it together.
So, let me ask you. So, just to backtrack just a second here,
Yep.
what were some of the outdated therapies, for example, once you started seeing how she was, doing so well with the spelling, and working with your daughter, and when you took her to the other school, what were some of the outdated therapies that you were just like, what are they doing? Like, this is such
Well,
a waste of time.
so at the time you don't know because I didn't know.
But
But then I,
looking back and reflecting
yeah.
now.
So number one, the curriculum. And then that alone, when you think about how demeaning that is for those kids, hey, so there's my daughter who can't control her body at all. Hey, go pick up that green block. And she just sits still. Or then sometimes she'll even go pick up the wrong block. So then they think that she doesn't even understand what the color
Understand.
green is or what a block is, or say vice versa, point to the zebra and she don't do it. And she points to a cat and it's like, well, she don't even know what a zebra or a cat is.
Right.
So that alone, and then you imagine the frustration the kid has, like, dude, they're never going to understand me.
Yeah,
And then I'm
totally.
sitting here instead of moving my body and regulating it like I should be on a swing or a trampoline or running through the field or playing whatever the hell, swinging and all that stuff. And I'm sitting
Mm-hmm.
here at this table getting asked to control this body I have no control over. And then they're
Yeah.
thinking I'm an not smart. And then the worst thing is they're then relaying that message back home to us. So then I'm reading these papers and then working, and I'm seeing what because we do homework and stuff. And it's like we'd working with, oh, we're back on frickin' the cat, or we're these simple letters. And the one morning, this was before even spelling happened, before we even learned about this, we had a happy birthday banner. I don't even know. It was her birthday or my son's. I think it was my son's. We put a happy birthday banner in the kitchen and we left it up for a few days. The one morning she went up there and walked up to each letter. It was like she gained control, like got possessed for a second. She's like, hey, hey. And she almost made P, P. And then she would make like these little sounds and point to each letter and went down the line. I'm like,
She's feeling more confident.
yeah. And then like, well, she didn't really know that stuff last week. Did she picking up? Did something click? What the hell is going on? And then we find out the spelling and it's just like everything was wrong we were doing. So as far as outdated, it's not necessarily that they're outdated. It's that they don't even know what the hell is going on because they're not acknowledging the body. They're treating it like it's a cognitive disorder because they're treating these 7-year-old kids with elementary toddler curriculum because they don't understand that they can't control the body. And not to get negative, but now they're trying to almost prevent people from figuring that out because they know.
Yeah, right. Right.
Yeah.
No, but let's get negative a little bit here because I want to ask you, and I want you to be completely honest and transparent.
Yes.
What is one of the things as a parent that pisses you off, that makes you so angry when people that, and I don't think that they're doing it to be dicks, right? But they're just because we don't know how to approach that. Like when, oh, my daughter has autism. Oh, what are the things that people say to you that you can share right now that you can say, don't say that to a parent with an autistic child? It's, it makes us
Oh, I
feel
got a
like
good one.
yeah.
I got a good one.
So share that because I know that a lot of times it's like people don't know how to, like, what do you say when how do you say that? How do you answer that?
Well, the whole talking about them like they're not in a room or talking at us about them like they're not even understanding, that's been going on, but professionals do that. I'll get this a lot as comments, and it sucks because people are only being nice, but autism is a superpower. And it's like, oh, my daughter struggles with significant stomach problems and has fought her ass off to control her body. And a lot of these kids are stuck in silent prisons and have all crazy health problems and can't even express themselves because they can't control their body enough. And it's not she does have some superpower abilities, but it's not like, oh, that must be awesome to have a freaking superpower like that. It's like, nah, dude, if you only knew the half, like we couldn't leave her alone in a room for 4 years, like you poop with the door open because you don't know what's going to happen. So it's chaotic. I mean, still to this day, I have locks on every single fridge because it's way better now, but there were years where we'd have like every cabinet, every fridge, every door, even we'd have to shut the water off too because they're upset. She would be obsessed with water. She'd turn on the water. So you might not think, oh, how big of a deal is that? Well, go cook, and then every time you got to open the fridge, you got to unlock it. Every time you got to go to the cupboard, you got to unlock it. Right. Every time you got to go to the bathroom, you got to find a key to unlock it.
It's inconvenient. Yes.
Yeah. It's a lot of, so it's just a big pain. Yeah. But you do whatever you got to do. So, and then that, and then talking about them like they're not in the room. And just the whole misunderstanding, like, oh, are they like Rain Man and then like, oh, the Big Bang Theory kid's autistic too, and all that stuff. So you hear all that, and
you don't get it.
Yeah, they don't get it. And the thing is a lot of them are just trying to be nice. So I never like bash people for that. I'll just give them a thumbs up or whatever. Yeah. But it's like, yeah.
So there's a lot of association where your first brain and then your second brain is your gut, right? So there's like, how important is health and diet and exercise for a child?
Everything.
Okay. So
everything. It is. So I'm going to start off with this. We didn't teach my daughter to spell one word. We didn't teach her how to do math. We didn't teach her how to read. Self-taught, all of them. go, there's documentation about this. The books I mentioned, there's a documentary called Spellers on YouTube, clarifies this. A ton of professionals, they just know how to do it. So there is something amazing with their brains. But what was I, sorry, I got sidetracked. The gut.
The
Okay.
gut health.
So they don't even like talk about that when you go to pediatricians. ABA didn't mention that. In fact, they use like Skittles to feed them and kind of train them like a
That's
dog.
like that's like the
And
worst
then
with
you
the
find
coloring,
out like,
right?
so that was a whole different path we went on. And it was honestly one of my best friends. He overdosed and died a few months ago. And I
I'm
will
sorry to hear
forever
that.
be grateful. Mark, I love you. And you helped us out tremendously. But he came across the book because he was like the nicest dude in the world and then would relapse and you wouldn't see him. But if he was around, he was like super supportive, would ask about Marissa, come hang out, and just was the nicest dude in the world. I love him to death. But he's like, dude, I found this book, and he gave it to my wife. It was called the Nemchek Protocol. And so basically what that is it's gut health. And it was for autistic kids would follow this certain protocol. We're like, what the hell is gut health? What does this even mean?
Yeah.
So my wife began to read the book and then the testimonies, and then she dug deep and then like, we got to try this. Like, we're doing stuff wrong because at that point we're only feeding her like chicken nuggets, grilled cheese, crap,
Processed
like
foods.
fruit snacks because that's what
Yeah.
she wants. She would smash fruit and we would know like we'll give her fruit and stuff, but almost mostly you take whatever they get. She was super picky. And so but where you're kind of hindering their progress when you're feeding those things because they're not developing. And then you talk about like energy levels and stuff like that and what eating food does for us. You know,
Right.
you eat a bunch of crap food, you
You're gonna
crash.
feel like crap. You're gonna
You're
feel
gonna
like
feel.
crap. Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
we dug into this thing called the Nemchek protocol. And what we found out is we ended up having to get a prescription from him. So then in the middle of the Florida trips, we then drive to Arizona to meet this guy. And honest God, he was kind of a quack. You know, we met, I didn't know. I read the book. We were following the thing, seeing good results because you have to drink this certain olive oil. But then after a while, the gut biome adapts. So you need a prescription for something. And because of our sweet system, you have to, it was $1,800 for us to fill it here, or you could get it online for like $1,800 for 3 months supply here, or you could get for a 2 month supply, it was $1,800 or 6 month for like 300 overseas.
Crazy.
So then like we were doing it illegally and then some stuff was getting seized and we're like, we can't do this. So we ended up we were like, we gotta go get a prescription and that would cover for a year and then we'll figure it out from there. So we drove to Arizona, sat with this guy and we're talking to this guy and truth be told, he knew nothing about autism. And he admitted it. He's like, I wasn't even planning on being in the autism field. He was an AIDS doctor and that had
Mm.
and AIDS patients and autistic patients share similar stomachs. Like they have the same stomach problems.
What
So therefore,
because of their immune system is
because yeah, he didn't get into that part, and I don't know if he was legally allowed to say
that's
why not or
interesting.
whatnot.
Okay.
So, but he told us that, and he basically said, like, no, I was an AIDS doctor all through the 80s. We would try crazy stuff. He's like, I killed people, or not killed people, but, like we tried different medications. And I've
Yeah.
been in studies where we watched people die, but they
Right.
were going to die anyway. It was like with AIDS
Right.
patients. But then they found out from studying stomachs or whatever, something came across. So then they started trying this protocol that was helping AIDS people on autistic people, and it was great results because basically you were healing their gut, and then they were able to better control their body and progress better. So we tried that and it worked, and then so we went down there, and then we learned that, and we don't even mess with that. We now do more of a natural detox. We add her on supplements. We do like red light therapy, and now her
I was
diet is
reading
so
about that a lot. That red light therapy is supposed to be amazing.
yes, it's
Yeah.
definitely helped. I mean, I don't understand it, but we tried it and everything seems good.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where I think it helps too much that they don't want you to know about it. But
Hmm.
so we kind of left that doctor. We left with the script. Everything was good. We were continue on with that, but we then just kind of figured maybe I don't know, things started to work a different direction, and she began to eat more cleaner, and was her body was letting her eat more food. And then we then that became our life because we're like, you know what? Like, we can't have chicken nuggets in the fridge and then give her this like
Yeah.
gut health stuff
If
and
you're
we're
buying
eating
it, if
pizza
you're
and
buying it, you're
carry
going to
out.
eat it. Yeah, you just can't buy it. You can't buy it. That's the bottom
No,
line. Can't have it in the
the whole
fridge.
family's on board. So
Mm-hmm.
we're gut health people. That's our life now. That's what we started shopping organic. We went to a farm to buy all our stuff. It was just all of our gluten free, just certain stuff. We were following a certain protocol, and then we didn't even need the script anymore. She's not on any medication. She takes certain supplements, but it was just it's everything, the stomach. And there's tons of parents that can vouch for that. And I know how hard it is because certain kids have food like sensitivities, whether it's texture or like sensory problems. They can't
So
even get to try it.
that's what I wanted to ask you next. So then with your daughter, just to share with other parents that could be struggling with this aspect of it now with the diet. She's hooked on all this crap food that you're giving her.
Mhm.
Like we all give our kids, right? It's easy
Yes.
access. It's just easy. Let's put it in the
Yep.
microwave. Let's give her some chicken nuggets and french fries.
Yep.
So what are the kinds of foods that you were switching her to where she kind of like acclimated to little by little that you can share with other parents, the easier ones to switch her to.
Yes. So my wife looked up like a recipe for gluten-free like Chick-fil-A nuggets.
Right.
And then she started making them. And then like so gluten-free pizza crust and then like we would do shredded cheese, like real cheese, and then
Mm-hmm.
do that. So stuff like that and quesadillas with from this brand Siete, they have like chickpea flour and gluten-free wraps and cassava flour, and you do like wraps with stuff like that. Organic frozen fruit, freeze dried fruit instead of fruit snacks,
Mm-hmm.
um, chips that literally the only ingredients are potatoes, avocado oil, sea salt, or potatoes, olive oil, sea salt, because those are the only three oils: is avocado, olive, and coconut. Those are the only three we're supposed to be eating. No vegetable, no canola, none of that
Right.
crap.
Right. Right.
So like all of that stuff, and then just began to like introduce it to her. But more importantly, the whole family was on board, and we
Right.
presumed competence that she understood and that she could do this. I'd be like, Marissa, and she, mind you, she's at all these meetings we're going to. She went to Florida with us. She heard us doing all this research
Right.
about gut health, talking about it, learning all this stuff. So like we would coach her body, like Marissa, I'm gonna leave this chicken loaf here, but try it. You gotta try it. Because if you really want to progress, man, we gotta dial this diet in because it's gonna help you to the best become the best version of yourself. And then sure as shit, it wasn't easy, but throughout the course, she began to try. And then the more she tried, the more she ate. And then the more she began to be able to try more foods. And now, like, my son is pickier. My typical son is pickier than my daughter.
Yeah.
Like, me and my daughter will eat chicken thighs from the farm with buffalo sauce and, like sweet potatoes. And
Sounds
just,
good. You're
it's
making me
awesome.
hungry. Now you're
Yeah.
making me hungry. So you keep beating me to the questions, dude.
Yeah.
So I was gonna ask you about your little boy now. So how has his big sister's autism impacted him, do you feel? Because I would imagine a lot of the attention has always gone to her just because of her development and you guys want to get her on course. That could be a little,
It
depressing
is.
for a
It is.
younger sibling.
And
How has that worked out?
So I honestly have the greatest son I could ask for, man. He loves his sister more than anything, and he gets it so much. Like he understands everything. He understands that when I talk to her, she comprehends she can't move her body. Like her body is not what's you can't read her body to get what's going on in her mind.
Right.
So attention wise, absolutely. He's loud and he speaks more for two kids. Like that was like the joke. I have a non-speaking kid, but he speaks enough for two kids because he
Isn't
just doesn't
isn't
stop.
isn't that always they take away from here, but they'll add it over here, right?
Yep,
Like that's just
absolutely.
the rule of life.
So he's definitely it's probably definitely affected attention and more so with the discipline because I don't let my son get away with some crap that my daughter probably would get away with. And
Yeah.
obviously there's a father-daughter thing where I'm
No,
just
and he's a boy. He's a
yes, and
boy.
I'm
It's
going to be a
different.
little harder on him,
Yeah.
but now it's as he's getting older it's way better.
Yeah.
It's way better. And I know when he's a teenager he's going to love it because damn, they don't even pay attention to me because they're so worried about her.
Right.
So it's he's just awesome, and he's in travel hockey, and she loves it. Like, she goes to every practice, every game, and she's just like, I swear to God, she's just super calm. She loves her brother so much, and he's just so supportive. And I feel good, like, because I need people here when I die. So I he's we're trying to raise him to be the best version, and I couldn't ask for like better right now.
Well,
So
it sounds like you're doing an amazing job. You really are, you know.
my wife
Um,
helps a lot.
Yeah, she sounds
Yeah.
like she's doing a lot herself. Absolutely. I mean, she's the one
Yes.
that's at school with her all the time, you know. So I can imagine the level of responsibility that she feels also
Yes.
for, just to get her more inclined with society. So like what you were saying, as you guys get older, what's going to happen with her too, so that she can kind of live more of a normal life, right?
Yes.
So what is your ultimate goal with sharing your family's experience with your autism journey in hopes of educating, other parents, educators, and for the public to take away from all the content that you're putting out there?
So I get so many messages that are like professionals. I had one the other day, it like made me cry because she said, I watched one of your video. I don't even know who this lady was. I watched one of your videos a year ago. She responded to one of my posts. And ever since that day, I treated my she was I think an OT, I don't even know. Um I treat my clients differently, and I educated myself in a different manner, and it has completely changed my whole perspective on everything. And I just want
Mhm.
to like thank you for that. And then I have countless parents who also that I've like introduced to spelling. And if I were to say anything, it's just awareness that like the spelling on letterboards is a way that they can communicate, and that apraxia is more of the problem than autism.
Mhm.
And more importantly, they're in there. Because as a parent to an autistic toddler, you have no idea what the hell is going on. Because, like I said, I mean, Marissa, come here. Marissa, come here. Marissa, come here. And she just stand there or look
Oh,
off into space or
so
do this. And you're like,
frustrating. I can't imagine how frustrating that must be. Yeah.
yes. So then you think like, does she even understand? Because for years we didn't. It was 7 years. She was 7 years old when we found out about spelling, and read Ito and Autism Land and underestimated and took that trip down to Florida and started our spelling journey. It was 7 years. And that was also the reason why I'm like, whatever money I put every single thing I own into getting this right, because I feel like I almost did her wrong. So it was like, I owe her. I owe this to her. And we're going to do whatever it takes. And that too is my goal. And she loves this. She like totally supports. She spelled out like, you're doing great, dad. And like all this
Oh,
stuff. Like, I love dad's videos.
she knows. She
And
knows what you're
yes,
doing.
she
Yeah.
knows, she hears it. She'll hear me screaming in the basement or whatever. And, but she knows that, I'm helping unlock the fact that like these kids deserve age appropriate material and to be spoken to with respect.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, yes. So, last question. So,
Yeah.
with this amazing advocacy that you're doing for autism, you're creating this strong community, right? Through social media. I want you to share it with everyone where they can reach you, because I'm sure that we're going to have a lot of parents,
Yes.
even professionals that may have questions
Yeah.
for you with your experience, where you can help educate them and you guys can share information. So, I'd like you to share how everybody can contact you through social media, and any parent or caregiver that's struggling right now with a toddler or a young child that does have autism. What can you give them, like, for final words, final advice? Like, what should they do right now in order to help them get the answers that they're seeking?
Presume competence, that they understand everything that's coming out of your mouth, because that's the biggest, because it's going to seem like they don't. And then I have a lot of people who will comment like, this spelling stuff's amazing, my kid's 3. Well, they're probably too early to start the spelling journey, because they are not going to have control at all to point to the letter. Even if they know
Mm-hmm.
how to spell the words, the 3, 4, 5-year-old toddler is a train wreck. And I'm not trying to be mean, but that's just the truth. So just know that it's there. Just know that your kids loves you, even if they're not expressing it. and that they're grateful for everything you're doing because I was like thinking my daughter might be resentful and she's just been the greatest thing ever. So, and then I see this with other parents because they feel the same way. I'm not the only one that had the guilt, and not to like, I'm not like rubbing it in, but there's parents who 20 years before they figured it out and they kept their kid in kind of like a silent prison and all this stuff and they didn't know. And I
Or
don't
they
blame them because
or
they
they
were just listening to the,
institutionalize them, right? Like
yes, they
how
were,
many of these like nonverbal autistic children, in older cases, right? Like previous
yes,
cases. I think that now we're a little more informed and there's better education and better assistance, for families that are struggling right now with not knowing what to do, right? Because you
yes,
are becoming that caregiver for a very long time. For that child. So
yes.
how can this community that you are growing and you are giving all this amazing information to, how can they reach you, Chris?
So I am on Instagram. It's Autism Dad Memes. And then I'm also on TikTok with the same thing, the same username, Autism Dad Memes. And then I just started a YouTube channel literally this morning because I don't know what's going to happen with the TikTok thing.
I don't know
So I figured,
either. That has me
no,
worried. Yeah.
yes. I actually, and then now by the end of this month, I'm going to start my own podcast.
Yeah,
So,
you're gonna do great. I
yeah,
definitely think, and you can start speaking with other parents that are
yes.
struggling with this information as well. Bring on professionals, other
I have
educators.
Yes, and I have some like awesome professionals. Like the lady I went down to Florida with, she's gonna jump on. My daughter's practitioners that now work 20 minutes up the street that work with all these kids, they're gonna come on. It's
Yeah,
gonna help a lot of people see a
absolutely.
different perspective.
Do it, do it. And if you have that passion, which it certainly sounds like you do, you have that passion to really bring out this awareness, don't sleep on this. Just do it. You
No.
don't know how many people you could be helping. This is such a big topic and it's a very ununderstood topic, right?
Yeah.
There's not a lot of awareness about this. A lot of people think that autistic children are slow,
Yes.
and I think that it's the complete opposite. They're just so smart that their brains don't even know how to operate at that level.
And it's basically like almost like the brain is so much better off than the body that causes the imbalance.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
and that's why I'll have professionals on because they'll be able to explain the exact wording. But that's basic. They have a trouble like that is signaling something, the message from their brain to their body, and
Mm-hmm.
then through that one little thing, the catastrophic events that happen after that, and the misleading and misunderstandings, just from that alone, can be like catastrophic.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Okay, Chris. Well, thank you so much for all of your information in the comment section in the
Thank you.
YouTube channel. I'm gonna go ahead and add all of your social media links for Instagram.
Appreciate it.
What's the one for YouTube then? What's the name of your YouTube channel? The same?
Uh, No, it's the Serenity Spectrum because that's going to be the name of my podcast.
I love it.
The
So
Serenity
good.
Spectrum because
Yes.
the Serenity prayer is the first prayer I ever prayed because
Mm-hmm.
that was AA. And so I just figured, you know what? And then part of the thing is if I can have some recovery talk on there too to help because that's deep down in my heart because I feel for them people too.
When I started this podcast, Chris, it was for a little mental therapy myself. I had gone through some personal issues, and it was for fun. It was talking a lot about like dating and
Yeah.
stupid stuff. And through it all, it's really developed into a mental health podcast where I'm having people contact me and I have really important conversations. And I've had people that have wanted to commit suicide through certain episodes that I put out there, and they've contacted to share their story or to speak to the person that was talking. So I have no doubt in my mind that I'm going to be getting comments or emails about this podcast because it's important. This is an
Yes.
important information to educate parents, caregivers, educators, physicians,
Yes.
therapists.
Yes.
It's something that this huge community does have to come together so that we better understand what autism is, right? And how we can better help these children that have autism. So thank you for all the
Absolutely.
advocacy that you're doing. I hope that we can talk again, in the near
Absolutely.
future. I would love to
Absolutely. This was
continue.
awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much. To everybody that's watching, again, I'm going to put all of his information in the comment section in YouTube. Please subscribe to our channel, hit the notification bell so that you never miss these amazing podcasts and episodes that we're putting out there where people are sharing their raw, authentic, personal stories of resilience, just to let us all know that we're never alone and that there's always hope and there's always light at the end of the tunnel. And we need to just continue to remind ourselves about that on a daily basis and live in gratitude and presence. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you again, Chris, for being on the Bear Experiment podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. And real quick, thank you for doing what you're doing because when people talk like this, like I know me and you would have say it right now. If we talk for an hour and one person got something out of this, then that was a great hour spent.
You
So
did.
like every time that something can get done like this and people are doing good work like this, I totally support it and I appreciate what you're doing too.
Thank you, Chris. That's awesome.
Yes,
Thank
and
you so
I'll
much.
plug you on my social medias too.
Thank
So
you. That would be awesome.
yes,
Hey, listen, I'll take
absolutely.
any little bit of help I can get too, right?
Absolutely,
I
absolutely.
I always mess with everybody that's doing this. I'm like, we're doing the Lord's work.
That's it. That's it. One day at
Uh,
a time.
one day at a time, my friend. Okay, Chris, thanks again. And no, we'll talk soon. I definitely want to reach
Yes,
out to you again. So
absolutely.
we'll
Yeah, and
keep
we'll
in
be
touch.
following each other and supporting each other and hitting that like button for each other no matter what. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Have a
Thanks.
great weekend.
You too, honey. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.